Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Shall we begin this morning by standing as we're able and singing together? Please join us.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome here to First Unitarian Church. We're in Portland, Oregon. Congregants gathered here and congregants gathered online. Welcome on this November Sunday. We're a multi-generational community. We strive to nurture each individual spirit and together to work towards justice. Let's begin this morning, friends, with greeting one another, here in person and online. Good morning, everyone. One special welcome this morning is for the members of the Cascade Ensemble of the Portland Gay Men's Chorus who are offering our music today. We want to welcome them. Do we have some matches in the house? Thank you, David. Our chalice lighters this morning are Rafa and Luca. All right, this is your last chance. Join us. We are Unitarian Universalists. We light this chalice in faith, in hope, and in love.
I am so grateful for that because I was going to read something else, but forgive me because this is from memory. I am so inspired by today's chalice lighting. Albert Schweitzer said something like this. At times, all of us need to think about the people who have helped us to rekindle our light when it has been put out. And I really want to thank our chalice lighters because life is like that, right? Sometimes our light is on and burning bright, and sometimes, and thank you for modeling that, it gets blown out really quickly, like we didn't expect it more than once, and then we have the power to have, if people help us, we can turn our lights on again. And now, I'm going to segue into a message about lights. I know this is a fun opening today. If you have a car, 908 LJJ, your license plate, your lights are on. So let us all be grounded and centered that there is a time for illumining the dark, and there is a time when the darkness is what we want to experience. With that in our hearts, our worship continues. And I would love to invite our storyteller this morning, Nate, to come forward and to share our story with us.
So Reverend Allison has actually started her main message a little bit early this morning because she is going to talk to the grown-ups about the Unitarian Universalist belief that we all, each of us, have the right, and I would even say the responsibility, to create our own story of truth and meaning. And so we especially think about that in November when our theme this month is story. And so I want to introduce to you Nate, who has for us a story about a puppy named Rocket, who creates his own very true, meaningful story.
Rocket writes a story by Tad Hills. Rocket loved books. He loved to read them to himself or to sit quietly by his teacher, the little yellow bird, as she read them aloud. Rocket even liked the way books smelled. When he opened a new book, it smelled like a place he'd never been to, like a friend he'd never met. The little yellow bird agreed. Books are inspiring. They make me sing. Rocket loved words too. After snack time, his teacher would say, "Rocket, why don't you use that nose of yours to sniff out some new words?" And off he'd go. He'd fetch some nice ones like buttercup and bug and feather and nest. "I'm looking for new words," Rocket would announce to anyone who would listen. Rocket always brought his words back to the classroom and wrote them down. The little yellow bird would help him spell the tricky ones, and then they'd hang them on their word tree. Sometimes the bird added her own words to the collection. "This one is small, but I promise it'll come in handy," she'd say. "Magnificent," chirped the little yellow bird once their tree was covered. "Now what shall we do with all these splendid words?" Rocket thought all afternoon. Then he had an idea. Rocket left school that day with a very waggy tail. "Hello up there. I'm going to write a story. I will use many words," he called, as he passed the tree where he found the word nest. The next day, Rocket returned to his classroom. It was time to begin. He looked down at the blank page, and the blank page looked up at him. but no story would come. At snack time, Rocket gave up. I don't know what to write, he told his teacher. Perhaps you want to write about something you've seen, suggested the little yellow bird. A bug? Asked Rocket. Yes, sang his teacher. Or what about something that happened to you? Or you could write about something that inspires you. Rocket took a walk and looked for inspiration. He thought about friends he knew and places he'd been. He stuck his nose high in the air and sniffed the gentle breeze. And there it was, a delightful smell of pine needles and feathers. Inspiration. For the rest of the morning, he thought about feathers and pine needles and feathers. That afternoon, he started to write. In the evening, Rocket followed the beautiful smell until he found himself at the tree with the nest. Hello again, he called into the branches. Is anyone home? He heard rustling from above, but no one answered. I'm sorry to disturb you, but I must tell you that you smell nice, very inspiring. May I ask who you are? Still nothing. Perhaps I'll come back in a more convenient time, he said, and then he trotted off. That night, as Rocket watched the stars, he thought about feathers and a nest in a pine tree. He thought about his story and his collections of words. On his way to school the next day, Rocket was surprised by what he saw. A brand new word, he said, and it's already written down. It says, he tried to sound the word out. Owl, came a voice from the branches. It says owl. That's me. Thank you, Owl, Rocket called. I'm always looking for new words, and this one's a beauty. Rocket ran all the way to his classroom. It was a present, explained Rocket to the little yellow bird, and he added the new word to his story. I'm writing a story about you, Rocket announced proudly to the owl the next morning. The owl poked her face out of her nest, and for the first time, Rocket saw her friendly face. Her big round eyes blinked with feathery brows. About me? She asked softly. Rocket cleared his throat and began to read. Once there was an owl. She smelled like feathers and pine needles. She lived in a tree. The owl's eyes widened. Is there more? There will be, said Rocket. Each day, Rocket worked on his story. He wrote down words and crossed words out. When things were going well, he wagged his tail. When he didn't know what to write, he growled. Sometimes he drew pictures for his story or took a walk in the meadow to look for inspiration. Rocket wanted to know more about the owl. He visited her tree often and read her his story, which changed every day. The owl was captivated, and when Rocket stopped, she would always ask, "Then what happens?" At last came the day when Rocket knew he was finished. What a fine story, tripped the little yellow bird after she read it. Rocket ran to the owl's pine tree. It's done, he called. Come listen. And down and down and down came the owl, till she was right beside Rocket. Then Rocket began to read. He read about an owl with friendly eyes and a beak the color of a buttercup. She lived in a nest high in a tree on the edge of a meadow and smelled like pine needles and feathers. She liked to nap in the daytime and listen to stories. Branch by branch, the owl came down from the nest, Rocket read. She was shy, but she was brave too. Suddenly, Rocket stopped. He wrote something on his paper and then began to read again. One day, the owl came all the way to the ground and became my friend. The owl blinked. Can there be one last sentence, she asked. Can you say, and the owl liked the story very much? What a perfect ending, said Rocket. And it was. The end.
And now let us sing our teachers and our students off to their classrooms with our sung blessing, Go Now in Peace.
Go now in peace, go now in peace.
a word about church happenings this morning after the service. As we always do, there will be a social hour in Fuller Hall immediately below us. And if you're a newcomer among us, I'd like to invite you to a welcome circle to my left here in our, to my left in the gallery. Thanks, you're waving. We'd love to get to know you and see what brought you to the church and see what questions you have about First Unitarian. Some of our membership committee folks will be there to greet you. And just a reminder that there are services that happen not only on Sunday but through the week. On Monday evenings, we have a Monday evening mindfulness meditation group that meets at 8 o'clock. That's online, and you can find out information through the church e-news. On Friday evening at 5 o'clock, there is a weekly Vesper service where you can bring prayer requests and intention, and it's a space for reflection with others during the week. And I encourage you to sign up for a daily Advent reflection beginning on December 1st. You'll receive an email every day in December, just as a way of staying mindful and reflecting together. You can check out information about all of those things in our weekly electronic newsletter that comes out on Thursdays. So once again, welcome everyone.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Good morning, everyone. So my name is Garrett Bond, and the other hat that I wear besides being here is have the incredible privilege of being the Associate Artistic Director for the Portland Gay Men's Chorus, and behind me once again is Cascade. Today we are here providing music for this service. We will sing 4 songs for you that in our own way share forms of stories. The first piece that we'll be singing is called When the Earth Stands Still by Don McDonald, and a piece that talks about when we take a moment and pause. What is it that we see around us? What love do we find? What joy do we find? Where do we find our belonging? The second piece is The Heaven's Flock by Erich Eschenwalds, the story of the stars in the night sky being the flock of heaven strewn across the world, reflecting off of the trees and the moon. And another piece, when we take a moment to be still, what is it that we find? And what beauty do we find? Our third piece is called Lux Arumque by American composer Eric Whitacre. It talks about light and gold. It's shimmery, and it tells an ethereal story, one that maybe we can't even grasp in our lives. And then the final piece that we'll do at the end of the service is a piece that we brought to you folks last year called Merry Everything by Ernie LaJoie. As we transition into this time of the holiday season, know that many holidays tend to battle out for which one is going to get the most importance, especially in a Unitarian church, right? Many holidays to be celebrated here. And the message of this piece, the story of this piece is whatever you celebrate, whoever you are, however you are, merry everything. Shameless plug that our concert for the Portland Gay Men's Chorus is December 12th to the 14th at the Newmark Center. Be on the lookout for more information from that, or selfishly go to our website and support the many queer folk and the 180 people in the main chorus that we have. And here are 12 or 13 behind me of some of my dearest and closest friends. So thank you for being here with us today. Thank you for sojourning out here. And here is When the Earth Stands Still.
There's a deep
During this time of our annual fund drive campaign, we are highlighting the many ways that our members weave the threads of generosity here. And I would love to invite Rizzo Smith to come forward and to share a story with you.
Morning, everyone. So, about a year ago was when I stood here and gave my new member testimonial, and it feels very meaningful to come back and continue telling the story that I'm making here with all of you. About 9 months ago, I started up a group text chat for those of us who are part of like the 20 to 45 age year demographic, and I've started referring to us as the balcony cohort, so we usually sit in the balcony. And that text chain has quickly taken on a life of its own. Many of us originally met earlier this year in a discussion group based on the Articulating Your Faith, which is happening again, I believe. It's for all ages this time. Most of us who were in that original group have stayed in touch, even if we aren't always attending services. And our discussion group allowed us an opportunity to talk about our values, our personal beliefs, and what holds us up when things are challenging. In my opinion, these topics are desperately needing to be discussed openly for my generation in order to foster connection in the digital age. As a result of our time together, the balcony-seated cohort is quickly becoming a group of people that I trust more than anyone else in my life. When I reached out recently to the cohort for support, the response was even more than I had anticipated. phone calls so that I could lament family troubles, help with assembling furniture, homemade soup to comfort, and hugs and messages of support at every opportunity. They don't know it, but the friends that I've made here have collectively treated me with more compassion and trust than I think any one person ever has in my life. I love all of you, and I want you to know that you make such a difference just by being who you are. This church year, I also have the joy of being a youth advisor with our high schoolers, one of whom was up here earlier, Nate, telling our story. And I'm quickly discovering that the teens here are a group of caring, intelligent, and resilient young people. I'm excited to keep getting to know all of them in the coming months, and I felt called to contribute in this way because I remembered what it was like when I went through the coming of age program as a youth, and although I wasn't thinking about it very much in the moment, in retrospect, it was incredibly meaningful to be able to spend time with people who encouraged my spiritual growth and supported my search for truth and meaning. By spending time with the youth this year, I'm continuing that growth and that search in a way which feels cyclical and very fulfilling. I have so much paradoxical, radical hope for my generation, as well as for Gen Z and Gen Alpha, if only because enough of us are still finding our way into these spaces where we can be together, where we can dream together, and where we can find strength in community. First Unitarian is creating those spaces, and I am so grateful for it. A year ago, when I gave my new member testimonial, I was still very raw from recent years of isolation, and I have felt so much healing take place here since then, and see the opportunity for so much more. To be made whole in community is something that I want for everyone. May it be so.
Beloveds, this church is so many things to different people. It is a place where our children connect with one another and with fabulous mentors like Rizzo. It is a place where we create friendships, where we get to talk about our theology in a context that is open and free and non-dogmatic. It is a place where we gather together to make a difference in a world that has need of our liberal prophetic faith. It is so many things to so many different people. And especially, it is a place where you can show up, your heart hurting, and to find the light of love. We have on the screen a bar chart. We just wanted to show people that this is really a socioeconomically diverse congregation, and that's important to us. And so one of the things that we ask is that everybody is generous according to their capacity. And you'll see on that chart that we have some folks that are $100 and under, and we have a couple of folks that have given over $20,000, and we have everything in between. And the point is generosity. And where we are is we're at almost, I think, 1,100,000 at this point, which is incredible. But we need to get to $1,475,000. So who thinks that $375,000 is a lot of money? I do. So we have some hardworking volunteers that are going to be reaching out to folks that haven't had a chance to pledge yet. And if you prefer not to receive that phone call, you have an opportunity today to fill out your pledge card online. And then if one of the volunteers already has your telephone number, you could say, guess what? It's so great to talk to you. Thank you for volunteering for the pledge drive, but I already gave, so you can call someone else. Isn't that a wonderful thing to say? And then I'm going to launch a little friendly competition. Who has become a sustainer of our congregation because you want us to count on you, which we do. Many of you have. Any hands, any sustainers in the room? Wonderful, wonderful. Yes. Now, I don't want to put you on the spot because I want you to know we do count on you. And I think Tom's a sustainer, so I'm going to say the message to Tom so that no one takes it personally. Tom, Dave Hoffman, who is our numbers guy, and actually is co-chair of the campaign, but only been a member for 2 years, and Mabsy Walters, you may have seen the message from both of them, who has been in this congregation for decades. He looked up a really interesting statistic, which is that the folks that are asking themselves what it is that they're going to give this year because they're not sustainers, they have a higher rate of increasing their pledge. So the sustainers, who are the stalwarts that care about our congregation and want us, and who we count on, I know that many of you might be surprised to hear that fact. So if that's you, consider this a friendly competition. Sustaining is a chance to say that, yes, I want to be generous with my congregation. And this year, we invite you to ask yourself, if you're able to do an increase, to go ahead and do that so that we can even the score. So, Tom, I'm asking you that question. Not just say yes, but yes and how much. And again, this is a challenging time. Tom and I have shared with you that we have already ordered grocery cards. Our administration is really attacking people and criminalizing those who are having difficulty making it paycheck to paycheck. So again, this is about giving what you have and actually feeling good about it, that it does make a difference. To those that have less financial means to give, thank you for giving what you can. And if you need help, please reach out to us. We are here for you in part because of generous folks that have given to that fund so we can support you. So let us all do what we can, and I can't wait to announce where our total is next week. And how many of you have a computer at home? How many of you have a pen at home? So I invite every one of you to let us know what you think you can give in 2026. It's how we fund our budget. Thank you for supporting this church. It does make a difference. And one of the ways we make a difference is by supporting organizations in the world beyond. And I'm delighted to welcome Marianne Barham to come forward and to tell you about one of those possibilities today.
Good morning, everyone. So I wanted to start just by thanking Rizzo for her story and for all the effort she has put into building community at this church. So I don't think we realize sometimes how community gets built in little pockets. So thank you, Rizzo. My name is Marianne Barham, and I use she, her pronouns. I'm here as a representative of the Immigrant Justice Action Group, IJAG, the Democracy in Action team, and the Social Justice Collaboration team. I'd like to share a few announcements about our social justice ministry. Today is the third Sunday of the month, when all 9 of our social justice action groups and the Shower Project set up tables in Fuller Hall during our social hour. Please join us downstairs after the service to meet members of our social justice groups, to grab some snacks, and sing justice songs with Rich and Gilda. Every year, our social justice ministry holds a retreat open to the congregation to set our intentions for the upcoming year. In October, our retreat focused on weaving community. Attendees learned about the many diverse roles needed for healthy social justice movements and discovered how each of us and our church as a whole is important as we live into our values. We ended that day with Marnie Tabscott, who's sitting over here to my left, helping us create this weaving. She gave us strips of paper and asked us to write a word or two that described the world we wanted to build. Marnie took these strips and wove them into this piece, symbolizing love at the center of all we do. Thank you, Marnie. And this, Marnie, stay here. This piece will be downstairs in Fuller Hall, so if you want to read all the messages, because you can't read them from there, come down and join us. I also wanted to thank everyone who helps weave community as we move towards a more just and loving world. It's our custom to share our Sunday offerings with organizations that reflect our values of justice and community care. This month, we share our plate with the Sanctuary Fund of the Interfaith Movement for Immigrant Justice, Emerge, a longtime partner of First Unitarian. Emerge is guided by the shared teachings of diverse faith traditions that call them to uphold dignity and humanity for all people, especially those most impacted by injustice. Emerge believes that every person deserves a safe place to live, food on the table, and the opportunity to thrive. The Sanctuary Fund provides emergency financial support to immigrants and their families dealing with the consequences of deportation. Emerge also provides stable support that extends beyond emergency financial help, fostering a stability, a sense of belonging, and the conditions for long-term well-being. If you'd like to donate via check or cash, our ushers will be coming around in a moment. If you're at home, you can use the QR code on the screen. In the sanctuary, it's easiest to use the QR code on the green slip in the rack in front of you. And if you're on Boxcar, you can also use the Donate Now button. Thank you so much for your generosity.
Each Sunday, we make a space in our service for the concerns of our community life together. A reminder that pastoral care happens in our congregation in many ways through our ministers and through our lay ministers. You can leave a prayer intention in one of our galleries or here in the front of the sanctuary. Those intentions are held by our ministers and lay ministers throughout the week. I have a number of concerns to bring you this morning. Member Judy Holmboe died on Thursday at the age of 79. Judy was a resident of Marywood's retirement community, and for months of her life, she was a high school teacher. She joined our church in 2017 and was a member of our alliance. Judy leaves 2 daughters and 3 grandchildren, and we hold them in our prayers this morning. Member Sheila Miles Jacobson died on October 28th at the age of 84. Professionally, Sheila was also a teacher. She inspired many students over many years. She joined the church in 1993, and she served in a number of ways, including as a lay minister in our congregation. Sheila leaves 2 sons and 2 grandchildren, as well as a large extended family, and we hold them all this morning. And we continue to hold member Julie Grice. Julie continues to be in OHS hospital. She's struggling with a pretty nasty infection, and so we hold Julie and wish her well for her continued healing. Will you join me now in a spirit of prayer and meditation? Spirit of life and of love, God of many names and of no name at all, hear our prayers this day. Those spoken, so many we hold in the silence of our hearts. Each week when we gather, Spirit, in person, online, we bring the intentions, the stories of our lives. May this be a place for us to bring all that we bring. Stories of gratitude for all the blessings we know. Stories of heartbreak at the state of our world. Stories of anger about injustice in so many forms. In our coming together, in our bringing those stories, may we be reminded once again that we are not alone. May we find a place to bring all of the emotions that come, especially in these days. Gratitude, fear, anger, hope. May we find a place to imagine how the world might be. And in the telling of those stories, in the living of those stories, help us to remember that our stories, that we ourselves are always works in progress, that within the living, that within the telling lives possibility, and that sometimes we may even find our way to some new story. Be with us, Spirit, as we strive to live the values of faith, of hope, and of love. Amen. Let's be together now for a few moments of silence. Let us sing together now our doxology, Spirit of Life.
Spirit
Our reading today is by Miller Williams of History and Hope. We have memorized America, how it was born and who we have been and where. In ceremonies and silence, we say the words, telling the stories, singing the old songs. We like the places they take us. Mostly we do. The great and all the anonymous dead are there. We know the sound of all the sounds we brought, the rich taste of it on our tongues. But where are we going to be, and why, and who? The disenfranchised dead want to know. We mean to be the people we meant to be, to keep on going where we meant to go. But how do we fashion the future? Who can say how, except in the minds of those who will call it now? The children. And how does our garden grow? With waving hands, oh, rarely in a row, and flowering faces, and brambles that we can no longer allow. Who were many people coming together cannot become one people falling apart. Who dreamed of it for every child and even chance cannot let luck alone turn doorknobs or not. Whose law was never so much of the hand as the head cannot let chaos make its way to the heart. Who have seen learning struggle from teacher to child cannot let ignorance spread itself like rot. We know what we have done and what we have said, and how we have grown degree by slow degree, believing ourselves toward all we have tried to become, just and compassionate, equal, able, and free. All this in the hands of children, eyes already set on a land we never can visit. It isn't there yet, but looking through their eyes, we can see what we long, what our long gift to them may come to be. If we can truly remember, they will not forget.
Where does your story begin? That was the question Ruby Sales, civil rights activist, social critic, and public theologian, asked those of us who were present at a gathering centered around faith, arts, and justice. She called on different people in the audience, and they responded by telling their birth narrative or some other birthing story, sometimes a story of transformation right in the middle of their lives. No, she said, your story doesn't begin with you. And she went on to model what she meant by telling the story of her great-great-grandmother and the elders in her village, followed by her great-grandmother, and so on. Your story begins with your ancestors. Ruby spoke about this act of remembering and reconnection as decolonizing our personal narrative. We did not spring from nothing. From day one, we arrived to a place connected to stories of oppression or of domination, of harming or being harmed, of healing, liberation, and more. The activities of those who came before us give us life and present the opportunities and the obstacles that are ours to overcome. Our story also doesn't end with us. It continues through our descendants, sometimes our own children and grandchildren, and always the people who come after us in the villages we are a part of, the communities in which we live and move. Our Unitarian Universalist communities are one of those spaces. Whether we know our personal, our communal, our national, and our global story or history and how we tell them matters a great deal. They shape us into who we are and who we are becoming. We won't ever know everything that has happened, and parts of our histories have been lost in so many ways, whether through literal burning in a fire or the metaphorical fire of forgetting. Where we locate ourselves inside this mixture of myth and truth propels us forth and foreshadows what might come next for us, for our community. At times, if we are entrusted with power, even the wider world. This is not simply a question of asking, who am I? The telling of our history and our stories, but rather, whose am I? To whom I belong. We are rooted in relationships in the past, the present, and the future. How we tell these communal and global histories can make all the difference. It was the year 2024 when all of us experienced a Black woman, Kamala Harris, almost becoming president of the United States by capturing 48.3% of the popular vote. By the way, more votes than Trump lost by in the election before. On the tail end of the week in which we honor our veterans, I will mention that among other powers she would have held, she would have been the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. It is the year 2025, when Black women veterans were erased from the website of the Arlington National Cemetery, which was established after the Civil War on the soil of the South's General Robert E. Lee's home. This was done to comply with our president's orders, as well as instructions from Secretary of Defense Hegseth, who claims that the motto, "Diversity is our strength," is the, quote, dumbest phrase in military history. I have to admit, as someone that never imagined myself in the military, one thing I have always admired is the commitment to diversity and the difference it makes. And it is certainly a part of our story in Unitarian Universalism. One way that we as Unitarian Universalists sometimes mythologize our role in relationship to our country's history, in particular to our shared history in relationship to people of color within and outside of our churches, is by reinforcing that our roots in the Northeast in Boston is evidence that we were always on the Freedom Trail. However, it does spiritual harm when we don't tell the whole truth. And we Unitarian Universalists covenant to affirm and promote the responsible search for truth and meaning. So we must faithfully tell a fuller story. Yes, we are the spiritual heirs of Unitarians who were staunch abolitionists, like the Reverend Theodore Parker, born in 1810, who was so outspoken in his sermons and engaged in the work of the Underground Railroad that threats to his life were continuous. According to lore, he slept with a gun under his pillow, ready to defend himself and the people who he harbored. But we are also the heirs of the Reverend William Greenleaf Eliot, also from a Massachusetts family and born only 1 year later than Theodore, who was not a fan of the abolitionists. He called them at one point the abolition Pharisees. While he did support the idea of ending slavery, he was concerned that our country just could not handle our, quote, race problem. And so he was not for equality happening, at least not in this country. He was part of a movement that favored sending freed Black people to colonized Liberia. By the way, and some of you are maybe catching up with this story, the Reverend William Greenleaf Eliot was the father of our first minister, Thomas Lamb Eliot. The truth is that our spiritual ancestors, even those in Boston, bore direct relationships to abolitionists and even to enslavers. I am deeply inspired, though, to tell you about the story of one of our sibling churches, the oldest continuously Unitarian church in the country, and what they have done to reckon with that history. King's Chapel, which was originally founded as an Anglican church in the 1600s, became Unitarian in the 1780s, the first church to fully claim our theology in its name. And just as an aside for the visitors today, some of you may have heard of Trinitarian churches or churches named Trinity. We're a Unitarian church, and what that means, the short version, is that God is one and that Jesus is a moral exemplar, a prophet, but not part of God, and that all of us have the capacity, like Jesus, to grow wiser and more just in our relationships with one another and the world. And if you're new, we do not think we are the Messiah. We just admire prophets of old and today. Now, 6 months after Trump issued the executive order titled Restoring Truth and Sanity to American History, restoring, what shall I say? myth would be kind, and sanitizing American history might be better. But 6 months after that, King's Chapel unveiled a 14-foot statue of a beautiful Black woman on a pedestal holding a bird cage with the door open and 6 birds who are free in various locations by the front of that building nearby. The work is titled Unbound, and it is by artist Harmonia Rosales. This memorial statue is part of a larger effort the church members have been undertaking since 2017 to uncover the history of how they are connected to the institution of slavery and the story of race and gender in our country. As a little background, King's Chapel was initially supported by members who would rent the pews. In times of segregation, the wealthy white members would sit down in front in the closest pews, while Black members sat up in the balcony further removed from the action. The wealth of some of their white members came from slavery. They made a huge effort to comb through historical documents, including wills that testified to inheritances, where the passing of ownership of human beings. I think it's important to pause, because that's huge to read that on a paper. The passing of ownership of human beings from one person to another is recorded. In all, they uncovered a connection with church members to the ownership of 219 slaves. You see, people in Boston could say, I don't have a plantation like those ne'er-do-wells in the South. Meanwhile, owning part of a plantation in the Caribbean, and or owning people right there who work their farms in Massachusetts. In all, they uncovered a connection with church members to the ownership of 219 slaves. At the unveiling of the statue, these names were read aloud. As their minister, the Reverend Joy Fallon, shared, we cannot change the past, but we can tell the truth about it. Now, as people move down that Freedom Trail in Boston, the history of liberation will include this part of the story. As Leah Sows, one of the tour directors, shared, you cannot ignore this statue, and I think that's super important. This woman being on a pedestal is given the same treatment as the Samuel Adams statue in front of Faneuil Hall. There is a narrative war going on in our country right now, and it isn't a new phenomenon. It has just reached a fever pitch once more, as it did in the post-Civil War era and the Civil Rights era. Historian Joseph Peniel writes that the narrative war is between the supporters of Reconstruction and a multiracial democracy, and redemptionists who are supporters of the racial status quo and of white supremacy. When Trump claimed that there were good people on both sides at the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, and when he commutes the sentences of the January 6th rioters, he is placing himself on the side of the redemptionists who have put forth claims that we have come too far on the road of freedom and we must turn back. Beloveds, we have not gone far enough. We must go farther still. One way they would have us turn back is by erasing history that is, quote, too painful. Too painful for who? Too painful for white people to revisit a time of dehumanization of our fellow siblings on this earth, in this country, or I would say much more painful for African Americans descended from those ancestors to revisit the harm that came to their bodies. Or worry about making our founders look bad, or it has nothing to do with us alive today. The truth is that the history of slavery invites us to see in our founders that they are humans like all of us, and they and we may hold ideals that outpace our ability to fulfill them. The truth is that this history has everything to do with those of us alive today. To keep the earlier context, many of our churches were built on riches gained through capitalism, specifically human capital, and we must name this. When we do not know our history, we cannot see the role we are playing in repeating mistakes from the past. When we do not know our full history, we cannot understand what is fully happening right now. There is another narrative debate going on, even among progressive people, and I have been reflecting on this one deeply. Is fascism a label that is too inflammatory to place on Trump and his administration? And I did place that label on the administration when I spoke to our city council members. I think that knowing the history shows us that this administration is following the techniques that fascists have followed. What is inside Trump's heart, I do not claim to know. Jason Stanley, a professor who moved to the University of Toronto from Yale out of fear that he would be silenced, and he writes about how fascism works. Among other things, it requires scapegoats and an enemy within. An education system where people are taught that our country is the greatest without question, a weakened independent media, consolidation of power, and an emphasis on polarization rather than moral clarity. And let me just say a couple of ways this is clearly happening. Right now, immigrants, LGBTQ citizens, and political opposition are scapegoats and the enemy within who are being labeled as terrorists, which is being used as an excuse to do anything to anyone with that label. Blowing up boats is about breaking laws and getting away with it in the name of counterterrorism, in the name of loving our country. By the way, we already taught our children how great our country is before. How many of you learned that in school? It's just that we had started to include where we had fallen short and how we believe in our ability as a nation to change for the better. That's how I love my country. I believe we can do better. And I'll just say that I'm going to jump to the close for time's sake, because it is past, but not before I say a couple more things. The purpose of erasing that second part, the part of how we've fallen short or continue to fall short and can do better, is that it functions to set up the great replacement theory. You see, if our founders were perfect, omniscient, then great white Christian men are all we need to have a great country. And by the way, if you are a white Christian man, I love you and I'm glad you're here. However, bizarrely for me, to quote the military, diversity is our strength. And so the problem with replacement theory is that non-whites or non-white women become then replacements and an existential challenge to American greatness. And that is why there is such an attack on DEI at the moment. And fascism promises a leader and a cult who will restore the old glory in the face of humiliation by other groups and leftists. And so here we are at a pivotal point in history. And I believe that if Ruby Sales was in this room, she would say, to tell that history about all the glory is to miss all the history that is gory. So, I invite you to take the time, yes, at the Thanksgiving table, whatever family you're surrounded by, your chosen family, your family of origin, whatever family you're nearby, and to take the time and actually to do both. To talk about the parts of our shared history that you're proud of, to dig deep and talk about the personal ways you're connected to some of that proud history, and to take the time to honor and name the way that you are connected personally and through participating in this democratic nation in the ways that we have fallen short, yes, even in the times that we would call gory, some of which are happening right now, as anyone that looks like an immigrant, quote unquote, is being snatched from different blocks right here in Portland. And I'll just end with a beginning. Yes, on my mom's side, I'm related to Jews who fled other places to this country and who were not always welcomed here, but who were resilient and found a way even when there was little way to be found. And I am related on my father's side to some of the earliest churches in New York, the collegiate churches, Dutch colonial settlers who arrived, one of whom was named Jan Huyck. And I'm proud that Jan Huyck was, I believe, called, if someone knows Dutch, you can correct me, a krankenbezoeker of the collegiate church, and he was one of two lay people that were, what that means is visitors of the sick. And he was a lay minister, and he did that work until an ordained minister came from Holland. And he was most likely in a group beside Peter Minuit while they negotiated / stole New York from the Lenape Indians. I'm proud and I'm inspired by the harm to continue in the work of ministry and to be a visitor of the sick. And because I'm also connected to a story of domination, to be fully committed to my descendants to participate in liberation. What's your story? It doesn't start with your birth. Happy Thanksgiving, friends. Let us give thanks. Let us sing, sing. Now in our going, may the light of love bless us and keep us. May it shine down upon us. May it be gracious unto us. And may it make of each and every one of us truth tellers who have courage and compassion to do what must be done. For this is the day that you and I are given. So let us rejoice in it and be merry. Go in peace. Practice love. Amen.